Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Race Week. Today, I'm going to discuss the Grand Prix that's dangerous both on and off the track. Yes, of course, I'm talking about the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. We'll start with off the track because that's the scenario that happened first. First of all, it was a couple of weeks ago now, but while F1 was in Bahrain, there was a missile attack by the Houthi rebels. Now, the Houthi rebels are based in Yemen. They are part of the Yemeni civil war. They're backed by Iran. And the government is fighting those rebels backed by Saudi Arabia. And Saudi Arabia keeps bombing Yemen along with the United Arab Emirates. Now, you might think this is too dissimilar. Why are we being allowed to race in Saudi Arabia when the fact of the matter is we're not racing in Russia because they're at war? There are absolutely no sanctions against Saudi Arabia. Well, Saudi Arabia has oil and gas and money. So those are the three things that the FIA and Western government leaders can't live without. Yes, a lot of F1 Twitter reunited on Friday night when F1 drivers spent 4 hours talking about whether or not they should be racing in Saudi Arabia as well. But yes, there was a second missile attack in between FP1 and FP2 at the Aramco oil plant in Jeddah, which was 9 miles from the circuit as well. Eventually, the Houthi rebels agreed a temporary ceasefire until after the Grand Prix, although our reasons if they allowed the ceasefire because of the Grand Prix is unknown. Now, F1 drivers, as I said, spent 4 hours. I mean, they did not finish until 3 a.m. Jeddah time on Saturday morning, basically discussing whether or not they should race. Now, earlier, all the team principal had met up with the FIA to discuss the state of the outcome, but some of them, of course, have got Saudi sponsors. Aston Martin, of course, have got Aramco themselves sponsoring them. So, it comes to question whether or not we need to have a review into who's allowed to sponsor the sport, where the sport's money is ultimately we want that money to come from. Yes, I don't disagree with races in the Middle East, but seeing pretty much everyone on Twitter on Friday night was calling for the race to be called off. Now, the drivers themselves had their own meeting, as I said, last 4 hours to 3 o'clock in the morning. At the end of that meeting, they decided all to race. There were reports that the drivers had been threatened with delays should they decide to leave, try and leave Saudi Arabia, or basically being unable to. Those reports apparently are false, but what assurances the Saudi government offered the drivers and the teams, we don't know. So it's a bit iffy. It's with the regime that's unable to sit down and have a chat with the Houthi rebels and has basically caused one of the world's worst famines in Yemen, but yet we're still going there. It is by far complicit of something called sports washing. Basically, F1 agreeing to race in Saudi Arabia is basically they are agreeing that they support Saudi Arabia in their obliteration of Yemen, along with the United Arab Emirates, who also are supporting the Saudis in that conflict. It's a conflict that has killed thousands of people, displaced a lot of people, and drove a lot of people to hunger. But yet, the FIA still feels fit that this is a country that we can turn around, and also a country that we should be racing in for years to come. Yeah, and it gets better than that, because according to Jenny Gow, F1 will be back there next year. So we've done nothing for human rights. I'm not against racing in the Middle East at all, because obviously we've got other countries who are also equally guilty of human rights abuses, but we need to start making progress in order to be able to race in the Middle Eastern countries as well. Because, you know, we've got Qatar as well. That's also another one that's very also has no human rights. Very controversial place to hold a Grand Prix as well. A lot of money, I suspect, will probably be given as well. The problem is that F1 is probably going to end up losing all of its viewers because it's too much invested in profit and not enough doesn't care about what the viewer needs as well. And this is probably a line for a separate video, but I disagree with having a third race in the United States. We don't need Las Vegas. It's also going to be a night race because of the Las Vegas rights, which means that the European market is going to be cut out. And it looks like also Spa, there are rumours that the Belgian Grand Prix could be axed on the calendar as well. So it begs to differ that, you know, we've got all these tracks that the Europeans who have watched F1 for years are now being passed over for the Middle East and the United States. And I don't have anything against F1 participating in the Middle East and in the United States, as long as we don't forget we try and include everybody, which I think a lot of the European market is being forgotten about, especially with likes of Germany as well. But yes, obviously that's the dangerous part of the Saudi track. Off the track as well, I would recommend to F1 and the FIA that they cease racing in Saudi Arabia until they, one, improve their human rights record, and two, they agree peace with Yemen, because racing in a country that's caused famine, yes, that it is a war, but nevertheless, the fact of the matter is it's a war that's gone on for far too long, for almost 8 years now. It's also a dangerous track on the track. Now, it's not just an isolated incident. Jeddah is too fast. It's too fast for the track type it is. The fact of the matter is that the past couple of years, people have ended up in hospital multiple times. And I'm not just talking about F1 and F2 as well. You might remember at the end of last year, I think it was Enzo Fittipaldi and Tia Pourchaire. Both were in hospital from the F2 race because of serious crashes. Schumacher also went to hospital as precaution. He was fortunately fine but missed the race. So there's not enough runoff for the track speeds that they are running. It's far too dangerous a track that we need to be racing on. It needs a lot more runoff as well, so they need to redesign the runoff areas as well. I get it, you know, it's supposed to be, it's the fastest street circuit in the world, but at the end of the day, it's not a safe track to be racing on. Yes, F1 cars are getting safer, but what we don't want we keep seeing horrific crash after horrific crash at this circuit. I'm going to say that we need to stop racing there now before somebody gets seriously hurt at Jeddah. So yes, that's where I'm going to leave it. Basically, my recommendation is we don't race at Jeddah, but I know that the FIA and F1 are too busy because they're too greedy, thinking of money and not thinking of the driver safety with the track, and also about racing a country that's currently at war, which is a bit hypocritical of them considering the fact we pulled out of Russia as well. So yes, let me know what you think in the comments below. If you are new around here, then please do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content. Until the next video then, I'll see you next time. Take care, thanks so much for watching, enjoy your day, and goodbye.